Good evening, friends. This is Rock Your Engineer. What we're going to do today, we're going to do a basic configuration on an ASA firewall. So, what you see in front of you, I have PuTTY set up on a serial interface through the console on the ASA. So, what I did, I went ahead and defaulted and erased all the previous configuration on the ASA. So it's at bare bones configuration. So it's just ready for us to start configuring. And up here is a Fortinet 60D. So we're going to configure the ASA to the Fortinet, and the ASA will receive internet connectivity from the Fortinet itself. All right, so we're going to configure the outside interface to the Fortinet. Okay, and that's what we're going to do. And just a little of the ASA, where it's usually located in a network. Usually an ASA firewall run or is located at the edge of networks, and the default route usually points to the edge router on the outside interface. Usually that's how it's set up, but this is just a lab. This is not an enterprise environment, so that's what we're doing here today. So let's go ahead and begin. First things first, Fortinet. If you've never used a Fortinet before, Fortinet to me is a firewall that does routing capabilities, and I just love it. You can use a GUI. Actually, let's go ahead and show that GUI real quick. So on this, you can go directly to the GUI interface, right? I don't have a username and password set up, so it's just admin. I hit later. It's just a lab. So this Fortinet already has connectivity already set up on it. So all we want to do is just add stuff. And this is the GUI interface for the Fortinet 60D. I love working on the GUI interface. You can configure interfaces on the GUI, but I like doing stuff on the CLI. I don't know, maybe because I'm old school, but you can actually set up the interfaces on the Fortinet through the GUI. As you can see, I already have some interfaces set up. The one that we're going to use today, we're going to use internal 2. And we're going to use a different IP address scheme, but we're going to do everything on the CLI instead of the GUI. As you can see here at the top, it shows you what's plugged in. So right now we're using interface 2. So interface 2 is already plugged into Ethernet 0/0 on the ASA. I love this device. I just love it. All right, so enough of that. So let's go directly to the Fortinet. The command that I want to use is show sys-in. So show system interface. So it shows you all your interfaces on the Fortinet firewall. So WAN 1 is the WAN interface. So this is connected to a router or modem or whoever you're getting your internet connectivity from. So it's usually set up on a WAN interface. So it comes in on a WAN interface. All right. WAN 2. So WAN 2. So it has 2 WAN interfaces. So usually the way we had this set up previously in different environments that I worked in, WAN 1 will be the primary interface. WAN 2 will be the secondary interface. What I mean by that, it's a primary and a failover, right? So in an enterprise environment, you want redundancy. And what I mean by redundancy, you do not want downtime if you lose your primary connection, whether that's AT&T. Say it's AT&T have an outage. you're not going to have any internet, you're not going to have any connectivity, right? So on WAN 2, you will have your second ISP, whether that's a LTE, whether that's a cradle point, whether that's a broadband circuit from Spectrum, wherever you're getting your second internet connectivity outside of AT&T, let's say Spectrum or Verizon, it will go on WAN 2. So basically this WAN 2 is just laying dormant. It's not doing anything unless this interface goes down. So this, to me, this is the fail-safe option. So you can configure this to pick up when this interface goes down. We're not going to do that today. That's on a different lab. But since we're going through interfaces, I just thought I'll just show you that, right? So you have your internal interfaces, which I already have. I'm using internal 1 for my PC, and then internal 3 is going into my switch lab, where I have 4 switches set up. I got 2 distribution switches and 2 access layer switches. Got them all, I won't say daisy chain, but I have a port channel set up. So I got that lab going right there, right? So we're using this, and we're going to configure the ASA, and it's going to be connected to this. So the first thing I want to do, I want to use a different address scheme for this device. So I'm going to configure this with the IP that I want to use. So usually when I want to do that, right? So hit Q. So I will go with config system interface. And with this, I have to get into a certain hierarchy. So if I want to configure this, I'll have to go edit internal 2. So this is totally different from a Cisco router. All right. So now I want to set my IP address. So since now I'm into the second port, which is the internal 2 port, now I can configure what IP address I want to use. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's going to be set IP, and just like Cisco, you can do the question mark and it tells you exactly what you need to do after your last command. All right, so we're going to use 10.1.02.125.255. Oh gosh, you can't type today, huh? 255.0. So we're using the /24. So that means I'm using the entire subnet. All right. So I'm using 254 addresses. You know, so I'm using the entire subnet. Yeah. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to exit out of this. So we already have this interface set up. So what is waiting on is for the other side, which is the ASA. So we're going to come down here. We're going to go to enable. There's no password, but you know what? Since we are configuring this ASA from the bottom up, let's go ahead and give it a host name. So config T, no, host name, just like any other Cisco router. So we're going to call this 5510 ASA Edge. All right. So as you can see, we went from the default host name to the host name that you want to set up, right? Next thing we want to do, we want to set up a domain name. So set up domain name. Yep, it's different here. Okay, domain name. Let's see, brainstorm.com. Okay, next thing you want to do, you want to set up your crypto for your SSH and stuff like that. So that will be crypto. Use your question mark. So the next command is key question mark. We're going to use generate. You can use gen for short. Question mark RSA. modulus right here. So I'm using the shortcuts. I don't have to type out the whole thing. So I'm just using mod, right? Then after mod, then you want to find out you want to use your bits. So I usually use either 1024 or 2048. So let's use 2048. Oh, so look, there was already one set up. So asked to replace it. So just for GP purposes, and we're doing this video, I'm going to go ahead and replace it. As you can see. Okay, cool. So we got that. We got the domain name. Got the host name. That's what's called securing your device. So you always want to secure your device before you move forward. Next thing we want to do, we want to set up a username and password. So username, we're going to call it Rainstorm. Password, do this. So I got my, I got to set up my enable password too, right? So enable password. There we go. It's just a lab. This is not real life environment. Not using public IPs. So we're good there. Cool. Now here's another difference between the ASA and just a regular like Cisco device, a Cisco router. So you can do a show interface brief. Here it's different. So here, show interface IP brief. On a Cisco router is show IP interface brief. Alright, so now you can see all your interfaces that you have. So this particular ASA only has 4 interfaces. Then you got one for management. So the interface that we're going to use for our outside interface is going to be Ethernet 0/0. All right, as you can see what this means. See, it says administratively down. Sorry. It means this interface is set down, so we have to unshut this interface. So let's go ahead and do that, since we're going to use that interface for configuration, right? So let's do config T. So you want to get in global configuration mode. INT for interface. Select that. Now you're in the interface. So you want to provide a no shut command. That means no shutdown. Again, I'm using shortcuts. I don't have to type the whole thing. That's why I love Cisco's. So no shut. So that unshuts the interface. So you won't see it administratively down anymore. You just want to see down. So let's do that. Show. Oh, instead of me typing it, I just use the question, not the question mark, but the arrow. Go back. Bam. Now you're going to see up. The reason it's up is because, if you remember, it already has the cable connected to the other side going to the Fortinet, but there won't be no traffic passing by, because this interface does not have any configuration. You need the IP address as part of that subnet in order to communicate with the other side. So that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to get in global config mode. All right. Then we want to get into the interface yet again. All right. So we're in the interface. So first thing you want to do, let's go ahead and add the IP address. And that's 10.1.102. Let me make sure I got the, you know what, I hate when this stuff happens. So what happened, the Fortinet, it noticed that I have not been using it, and it just went away. So let's go ahead and change that. So I'm gonna SSH into the Fortinet again. There, we're back. And let's bring back the ASA. Cool. So let me make sure that I am typing the correct And this happens a lot. So I'm going between a Cisco and a Fortinet, right? And I'm trying to use a Cisco command on a Fortinet. That happens. All right, so let's make sure that we are doing the correct, and we are. Okay, so we're going to give this a .10, and of course 255, 255, 255.0, and then we're going to name this interface outside interface. Name if outside. So automatically is set at default 0. This is your what we call the untrusted zone, right? Untrusted zone is the internet. That's the untrusted zone. We don't trust that zone. That's why you have that firewall. All right. The inner part of the firewall, the internal interfaces in the firewall, is what we call the trusted zone. We trust the configurations that's set inside of our network. You know, because we're protecting our network, and then we're going to apply rules and stuff like that to protect our network. All right, so this is the outside. Outside is always set for 0. So we're going to check it out. So show interface IP brief. Now we see an IP address. Now let's see, can we ping the other side? Let's try to ping the other side. Ping 10.1.102.1. We can ping the other side. This is crazy. Let me see. Usually I have to set an IP route, right, to route out, but for some reason I'm able to ping it. So let's go ahead and set our routes anyway. So it's going to be route, use your question mark, route outside. So what route outside means, we're using the default gateway of the device that we're getting an internet connection from. So we're getting internet connection from this Fortinet, right? So this is the IP for the Fortinet. So this IP right here is the default gateway. A gateway which allows us to connect 2 networks together. We use this to route out. So this goes here. Now we're all set. So now I should be able to route out. So let's see. See, 8.8.8. That's Google, right? So that's one of the tests that you can use when you're configuring a router or a firewall, and you want to make sure you have outside connectivity to the outside world. You want to test it by pinging Google 8.8.8.8. That's Google's DNS server. So if you ping that and you get a full response, that means I can route out. Now I have internet access on this device. One second. Where did my video go? Hold on. There we go. It happens sometimes on this recording stuff. All right, cool. So let me check on this Fortinet. All right, pull this up here a bit. Pull this up. Cool. All right. So second thing I want to do, I have another router on the other side of my network rack, and I want to configure a second interface, and that's going to be my inside interface. All right, so this is going to the inside of my network. All right, so for that we're going to use interface 0/1. Okay, so we're going to use this interface for our inside network. All right, as you can see, it's administratively down. So let's go ahead and bring that up. Now the difference with this interface versus the other one, I don't have a cable connected. So I'm going to set that up here. Cool. Oh, got to put interface. Now I'm in the interface. Let's no shut that interface. Cool. Now we're going to set the IP address for that interface. Now, good business practice, right? So when you're designing a network or you're putting a network together, you know you're going to have IP schemes, right? So you want to make sure that your IP schemes are close together. What I mean by that is, you can see I got 10.1.102.10, right? So my next IP scheme, I don't want it too far from this one. So instead of using 102, I'm going to use 101. So it's going to be 10.1.101.10. You know, I try to keep your schemes together. You don't want it all over the place. It's just good business practice. You know, it's not a must or things not going to break, but at least when you have your schemes together, it shows some kind of organization in your network, right? Okay, cool. So we're in that interface. So IP address 10.1.102, no, sorry, 101.10. Again, we're going to use the whole subnet again. All right, so this time we're going to name if inside. So this is going to be our inside interface. You see it's set, the security level is set at 100. All right, so what that means, there's no routing, there's no, whatever device is behind this is not going to be able to route out, because the security level is set at 100. So in order for you to do that, it's like you got to poke a hole in there and say, oh, I want to get out, I want to get out. So by poking a hole, what you have to do, you have to set up some object groups. You got to set up some rules, all right, that's going to allow traffic to pass through that interface to the outside world. And we're going to do this after this. We're going to do that after this. So cool. So let's do a show interface IP brief. All right, now you see the down because there's no cable assigned, well, not assigned, plugged into this interface. I will plug up the cable as soon as I get a chance after I finish my configurations. All right, so let's go ahead and set up our object groups. Okay, so we're gonna configure our object. We're going to call this one for internal access for the inside network. All right, so object question marks, right? I always say that. So the next ones you see, not service, we're not doing ports, just network, right? So the next one's network, and then you want to name your object network. So I'm going to call it inside access. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to set the subnet that we need inside access for, which is for 0/1. So it's going to be 10.1.101.0. So we're not going to do the 10, we're going to do 0, the network, the whole entire network. All right, because we want any device that's connected to that subnet on a device that is plugged into 0/1 to have access to the outside world. We don't want one IP, we want all 254 IPs. So that's what I'm using. That's why I'm using the entire network instead of just one IP. emails. Sorry about that. Emails always getting in my way. All right, so I messed up because I didn't put subnet. So subnet, right? 10.1.101.0.255.255.255.0. Cool. So now we set up the object group. So the next thing I want to do is to set up, I have my IP or my configurations already set on this side. All right, cool. So now we're going to, I want to use the loopback address for the other device that's connected to 0/1 for the inside network. And that, you see a loopback address set here, 6.6 right here, but we're not using that one. We're using the loopback address for the other router, which is 150.1.3.3. okay, so we're going to go route inside 150.1.3.3 255, and we're going to route it to the default gateway on the inside. So that's going to be 10.101. Let me make sure I got that IP correct. This thing keeps I just used it. Jeez, come on, Fortinet. All right, let's get back in that Fortinet again. Now it looks like it's stuck. Okay. All right. Show sys int. So now we have an outside route and we have an inside route. All right, let me see. Going through my configurations here. Make sure. I always prepare my templates before I start. Alright, so cool. So we already configured the object group for the inside network. So let's see if our object group is all set up. So instead of, you want to do a show run, to look at your configuration, you can now actually do a shortcut. Alright, so that's going to be show run object group. There's nothing showing. Let's see what happened. So we have the outside route, we have the inside route. There we go. Probably used the wrong command. So we already got that set up. So we set up the inside interface, we set up the outside interface. We already have internet connectivity going to the outside. Now we need to test the inside. So we're going to do that on the very next video. And on the next video, we're going to configure the DMZ as well. And that's usually the DMZ is where you'll have like your servers, your web servers, DNS servers, whatever servers that you want that actually needs that extra security. You want to put that behind your DMZ zone. So we're going to do that on the very next video. Thank you for watching, and you have a good night.